Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. It's from Missy-flissy, who says, am I the arsehole for accidentally ruining my sister's wedding over a family secret? Welp, I think I just completely screwed up my family. Last weekend was my sister Claire's 31 female wedding. Everything was going fine until the reception, but my drunk uncle, my mum's brother, started making weird comments about how it was nice that our dad was still playing the role of father after everything. I had no idea what he meant, so I pulled him aside, far away from everyone so we could talk in private. At first he brushed me off, but after some pushing, he just dropped it. My mum had an affair around the time Claire was born, and there's a real chance my dad isn't actually her biological father. He said it was like old news, but this was the first time I was hearing it. I was completely frozen, trying to process what he just told me. And then I turned around and saw Claire standing there. I had no idea how she heard us. I swear I pulled my uncle far enough away that no one else should have been around, but somehow she was. She just kept saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" over and over. My uncle immediately started backtracking, but it was too late. Claire went straight down to our mum, dragged her outside, and started demanding answers. I followed because, well, what else was I supposed to do? My mum kept saying, "Not now," but Claire was not letting it go. Then she turned to our dad and asked if he knew. The look on his face said it all. At that point, Claire just lost it. She started crying, yelling that her whole life had been a lie, and then she just left her own wedding. Now, everything is a complete mess. My mum is furious with me for entertaining gossip. My dad isn't speaking to anyone, and Claire won't answer my calls. Some of my relatives think Claire overreacted, while others say she had a right to know, even if the timing was horrible. I feel awful. I never meant for this to come out at her wedding. I wasn't the one who told her. But I still can't shake the feeling that I played a role in ruining what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Am I the arsehole? Edits. I've been receiving a few DMs asking some important questions, so here it goes. Neither of my parents drink for various health reasons. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. I'd asked him about my other siblings, 28 male and 21 female, and he denied anything regarding them, saying I took him far away, meaning I'd taken him to a completely different area where we shouldn't have been followed. There's been zero signs of infidelity between my parents, so this is completely out of the blue, which is why I was so quick to ask. Hope this clears a couple of things up, and please feel free to ask more questions if needed. Look, you didn't cause this drama. Your uncle's the one who's wandering around drunk and let out that information. If it wasn't to you, he was going to say it to someone else, and you were just as blindsided as Claire in this. Pulling him aside was the actual responsible move when he started making those weird comments at a wedding of all places, and your mum is just deflecting at this situation. She'd be mad at you for entertaining gossip. It's easier to be mad at you and redirect her guilt onto you instead of owning up to the decades-long secret that just exploded. And Claire, you can totally understand her reaction as well. Her life has just been turned upside down. Finding out your father might be different on your wedding day is about as bad as it gets, really, isn't it? But Grandma Patty says, tell your mother that if her drunk brother wasn't running his mouth, it wouldn't have come out. Then look at her and say, in fact, if you hadn't cheated on your husband, none of this would have happened. I don't want to hear entertained gossip bullshit. I didn't entertain gossip, I heard the truth. So did Claire, and if you're unhappy with the truth coming out, then maybe talk to your brother, because you're not going to pile on me, blaming me for your problems. KLG asks OP, why are you the bad guy and not your uncle? Why didn't your mother get a hold of his drunk ass and contain him when he started his speech? Not the arsehole. OP replies saying, this is why I'm asking Reddit. I don't know if there's something deeper going on between them or she's trying to deflect blame to hide her own actions. It's so hard to try and put the pieces together. Once I know anything more, I'll reply again so you can read the update if there ever is one. So OP came in with her update and says, so I wish I could say there's good news, but honestly, the last few days haven't been much of anything. My dad has been all out of sorts, crying, zoning out, and just overall not himself. Last night he had a breakdown regarding everything that happened and cried to me. He thanked me for bringing it to light, but also scolded me for doing it at the wedding, which I understand completely. I know I should have waited for a better time to do it, and I honestly have no excuse for that. My dad created a life 360 with me whilst he went to stay at a hotel just a couple of miles away. He says he doesn't know how long he's going to be there for, but I know he's safe. I heard very little from my sister. I sent her a long paragraph apologizing for everything and telling her my intentions were never to hurt her or ruin her day. She sent me back a paragraph telling me it's not me she's upset at, and that she honestly thanks me for bringing it to light, since she heard his first comment too. And if nothing was said, it would have eaten her alive. We're not on good terms, so to speak, but I check up on her every so often after a commenter in my original post told me she could do something drastic. So, thank you to whoever said it. It never even crossed my mind. My mum and uncle are a lost cause. They spent the last couple of days trying to argue with us that it's not what it looks like, and now they're claiming it was just a harmless prank and never meant to upset anyone or cause drama, but for obvious reasons, no one is believing them. And this claim is what led to my dad leaving. I think he knows something else, but I'm not going to pry him for that just yet, whilst everything's still raw. Sorry this update wasn't much of anything. I just wanted to update people on what my sister's perspective is and how my dad's doing, since I've had a lot of people message me concerned. I understand people will have a lot of questions, and I'm willing to answer what I can. So Sweet Interview says sounds like the dad didn't even know that the mum simply told the uncle and others he knew and had forgiven her. After all, that way most people wouldn't bring it up again and would just accept what they can do if he's chosen to father the kid. Opie says, from everything I've heard, my dad has been completely oblivious about everything like the rest of us. But the second part is a very good point, and I'll try and bring it up if I ever get to talk to my mum about it. According Pizza says, this would be a crazy plot twist. But is there a chance your mum cheated with your uncle? I can understand old resentments coming up while drinking, but if this has never been mentioned until the wedding, where your dad surely walked her down the aisle, sounds like maybe something hit a bit of a sore point for your uncle, and all of this just isn't adding up. So sorry, Opie. Opie says, this has been mentioned a few times, and I'm hoping it's not true, since it's my mum's brother. However, your point is making me question it. Thank you for bringing it up. This is a perspective I never thought of. Another commenter says, I can't help but wonder what the at no point mentioned groom has been doing in all this. Opie says, he's been obviously distraught and has been helping my sister cope. My sister and him have had a very difficult time, obviously, so if I hear anything from his perspective, I'll be happy to mention. Yeah, I gotta be honest, I did think about what was happening in the first part of the story with the groom when, obviously Claire ran out and he was still there. Obviously, I'm not blaming Claire for a reaction because she would have been overwhelmed with what was going on. But the groom just seemed non-existent until that last comment there. But they seem to be going down the it's a prank route. Like, what kind of prank would that be? Why are you even trying to go down that route? It's just absolutely bizarre. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Am I the Arsehole Stepping Mac from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, and it says, Am I the Arsehole? A lot of Am I the Arseholes there, because I don't want my half-brothers to come on a trip with my uncle and I. 15 male and 3 older half-brothers. Twins, Max and Jake, 18 male, and Shane, 16 male. We have the same mother, but they have a different father. Max, Jake, and Shane's father is very involved in their life, and they live with him every other week. On the other hand, I have a deadbeat absent father that I never see. I have no relationship with half-brother's father. My half-brothers definitely don't treat me the same way they treat each other. I have friends who are older brothers who are supportive and hang out with them and are there for them, and mine are nothing like that. Often when Max, Jake, and Shane are at their dad's, I spend the weekend with my uncle, Mum's brother. Because of that, my uncle and I are very close. One of the things we do together is watch NASCAR, since he's made me a fan. It's our thing, and as far as I know, my brothers don't watch NASCAR. I've never watched a race with them at least. Next week, Max, Jake, and Shane were supposed to be at their dad's. My uncle was going to take me to the NASCAR race in Atlanta that weekend, just him and I. However, my brother's dad has to go away on some business trip, I guess, meaning they aren't going to their dad's next week, since they'll be here. My uncle also invited them to come to the Atlanta race with us. I didn't want them to come. When they went to Europe or Florida or skiing or New York or any of the other trips, they take their dad and I don't get invited. They go away with him 2 or 3 times a year. I've never been away because my mum can't afford it. This will actually be my first time on a plane. They get everything. This is the one thing I had. Just my uncle and I, and he just invited them. Since they're going, I no longer want to go, and I'm considering telling my uncle that tomorrow. When he told me they were coming, he could see that I wasn't happy. He knows how I feel about my relationship with them, but he said since they're home, he can't not invite them. It wouldn't be fair, but it's not my fault their dad is going away. I know my uncle can't uninvite them now, so I really think I'd just prefer to stay home and not go. Would I be the arsehole if I told my uncle I don't want to go, and instead stayed home? A commenter says, I don't think that you would be the arsehole, but I think you would be unwise. You seem to feel sad that you're left out, and that makes sense. But one of the reasons that they are closer to each other than they are to you is that you guys don't have much time together. I'm not saying that you will come away from this trip best friends, but you might be closer than you would have been. It sounds like you're angry about being excluded, and your solution to that is to exclude yourself further. That never works. It's a classic instinct, and a lot of people do it, but those people end up lonely and angry. Unfortunately, in order to have fulfilling relationships, you have to make yourself vulnerable, and that involves risking rejection. You have to put yourself at risk of rejection all the time, otherwise you're just going to be alone. Have you ever talked to them about the fact that you feel left out? If not, you might want to try that. You don't have to ask them to pay more attention to you, but you can simply say, sometimes it's hard for me because you guys are really close and I don't have that. Sometimes I wish that my brothers felt more like regular brothers. Important. You don't say it like you are mad at them. You say it out loud like you want them to know because you care, and you wish that you could be closer. And then the key is you don't ask for anything. You just tell them how you feel. And you don't sulk. You laugh at their jokes, you're kind to them, you treat them like you would treat a friend. That's how you make friends. You have to treat them like friends. You can't sulk your way into a friendship, and you can't isolate yourself into brotherhood. If you have already tried these things and it hasn't worked, then by all means, stay home. Then, if you tell them honestly how you feel, and you are kind to them and you put in some effort and it doesn't work, at that point you can completely separate yourself from them and not have to feel guilty or responsible for it at all. At that point, they are the problem and not you. But until you try those things, you will be a part of the problem. You have to understand that they are also dumb teenagers and they might not understand how you feel or have the maturity to care about how you feel. And that sucks. But you won't know until you've given them a real chance. If you give them a chance to know how you feel and an opportunity to try and fix it, and they blow it, then that's on them to seek forgiveness, when they eventually gain the wisdom to realize they were wrong. So basically, I don't think that you would be an arsehole, but I think you would be one step closer to being a lonely guy who created that situation for himself. Help yourself by being the most kind, honest, open person you can be, even if it doesn't pay off this time. Practicing those skills will eventually pay off a lot, and if you do go, you can still just try to have fun watching NASCAR with your uncle, who you love very much. He's in a tough position and is trying to create something that's good for everybody. He's having to compromise right now, and he's doing it in a really nice way, by paying for a bunch of people to go on a cool trip. It might be worth trying to support him. Also, I know this sucks, but it doesn't really matter that they get more stuff than you. That's just how life works. Some people get more stuff than other people do. It sucks, but they aren't old enough to know better yet, and it's not their fault that they have more than you. And it's not your fault either. Sometimes things are just unfair, and all you can do is try to be as kind to everyone as you can. Opie said, I appreciate the advice. I guess I've never directly spoken to them about how I feel, but I figure that they know. I mean, they are pretty obvious about not inviting me places. One-on-one they can be okay, but if it's 2 of them or all of them, they just go off by themselves. I asked to do stuff with them. They say no, so I stopped asking. I know our mum has talked to them before and our uncle has, but it didn't really change anything. Maybe they'd include me for a couple of days and then they'd go back to doing their own thing. So I guess I haven't really been fully open with them, but I think they know. I'm thinking about trying it like you said. Someone asked if the half-siblings has ever bullied him before, and Opie said, to be fair, I wouldn't call them bullies. They don't pick on me or beat me up when no one's looking. They just usually don't include me. Ron K says, you are only 1 year younger versus the youngest half-sibling. Do they resent you? Did your mum cheat? It's not your fault, but their dad isn't related to you, but your uncle is related to all his nephews. Opie says, I guess my mother cheated, to be honest. They got divorced a couple of months after I was born. However, I don't know if my mum and their dad were still in a relationship when she got pregnant. Maybe they had already separated, or maybe he had already moved on. I don't know. I've never asked, and I don't think I want to know. Timing would suggest she did cheat, but I can't confirm. That pocket says even kids can do the math and realize that their parents were together if mum and dad divorced a few months after Opie was born. If Opie didn't care about trips, his siblings was on with their dad and realized they were irrelevant to him, then he would never have used them as an example. It does bother him, or he wouldn't use them as a reason to exclude the older three, because that logic doesn't work. The older kid's dad isn't his dad, but the uncle is all of their uncle. Opie can pitch his tantrum and not go. He can miss out. The uncle has decided that he won't leave out the other three just because Opie has some possessive thought about the uncle. At the end of the day, whether Opie likes it or not, the uncle isn't his father. His father left. His mother is the reason behind most of this. Opie says, I mean, yes, I'm jealous of the trips that they go on with their dad. That's very true. However, I don't expect to be included in those trips. I mentioned it to point out the trip isn't a big deal to them. They've been across the country and to Europe, while I've never been on a plane. It's not like my uncle is taking me on a once-in-a-lifetime vacation that they haven't experienced. I understand that our uncle isn't just my uncle, however, so I've accepted they'll be there, I guess. Trez Watt says, yeah, this is really too bad. I'm sorry, OP. The trip you thought you were having is no longer the trip that's being offered. I wish your uncle had talked to you first, but he's trying to do the right thing here. All that said, I think you should go on the trip. Don't deprive yourself the fun. This is the passion you and your uncle share. Don't have your brothers come home talking about having seen NASCAR live, which is your thing, not theirs. Maybe it'll be a bonding experience for you all. Maybe it won't. Maybe your uncle will take you somewhere again, just the two of you. Maybe he won't. You should confide in your mother more. I know she's doing her best and she can't make your bio dad step up, but she knows how much the fact that your brothers all have two families hurts you and excludes you. I'm really sorry for that. But all that said, please keep this trip and the experience your uncle designed for you. You need to just adjust your mindset that it's a group thing, but make the most of being there. I heard NASCAR's crazy cool in person. Opie says definitely don't want to damage the relationship with my uncle. For what it's worth, I also don't want to make my relationship with my half-brothers worse than it is either. And I think there was some amazing advice in there, and a lot of true advice as well. I sort of thought about, Opie should definitely go on the trip. And I think it might be good for them that the uncle's there as well, because he's sort of like a buffer between them. And the uncle knows the score of what's going on between them, so there's the possibility that he will bring them closer together in some way as well. He might not. It could literally go either way, but I think missing out, like the comment said, would be a bad move and just alienate yourself further from them. But Opie did come in with her update and told us what they did. They said, after reading the comments, I realized it wasn't my place to ask my uncle not to invite my brothers, as he is also their uncle. Also, if I chose not to go, it would just be denying myself something I really wanted to do and would upset my uncle, which I didn't want. So I decided to go to the NASCAR race. I also decided against saying anything further at the time. The days before we left, it felt like my brothers were being nicer than usual, so that was cool. They added me to their group chat, so it'd be easier to keep in contact on the trip. The reason they gave. I roomed with one of my older brothers, Max, in the hotel. On Saturday, we went to the racetrack for the first races. I was getting food when I accidentally cut the line. I thought the people standing in front had already ordered. Someone pointed it out to me and I went to the right spot in the line. There was a guy in the line who was super mad, going on about how I was a little arsehole and only apologized because I got caught. And he walked up to me yelling. And then Max appeared and told the guy to calm down and stop yelling at me. He kept yelling at me, and Max stood between me and the guy and told him, if you say anything to my little brother, we're gonna have a problem. And the guy finally backed off. Bloody onion ninjas. I've never seen Max as mad as he was right then over that guy yelling at me. And it meant a lot the way he jumped in. Back in our hotel room that night, I was thanking Max again for standing up for me earlier, and he told me as his brother, he'd always do that for me. It seemed like the right moment, so I finally took the advice and opened up to him. I told him that I wish me, him, Jake and Shane hung out more together, and I'd like doing more stuff with him and them. We talked for a long time about our relationship. Max then talked to Shane and Jake because the next day they both apologized for me having felt left out as well. When we flew back home, Max had told Jake more of what I had said. He asked me if he could first. Jake and I went out on Tuesday and talked about it a bunch, and he kept apologizing for letting me down. I told it was probably mutual and I didn't act like I wanted to spend time with them. But he told me he was my big brother and should have been better. We've all agreed to do better going forward. Kind of funny that it was a drunk guy yelling at me which got me to open up in the end. Oh, why is there water coming out of my face? It sounds absolutely wonderful. There ain't much more to say about it really. It's just, apart from keep involving yourself with your brothers, and I'm sure they will reciprocate as well from the messages. You're in their group chat now, get involved, post a couple of memes, and I just hope that your relationship with them continues to flourish. It sounds great. It sounds like it's on a proper good path now. But Avionics says, thank you for taking the time to update. I've been wondering how everything went. I'm really glad you enjoyed the racing and also that your brothers will try to include you more. Cheers, mate. Opie says the races were so cool to see in person. My driver almost won on Sunday too. Don't Want says, I've noticed that a great way for family to mend an issue is coming together because of an outsider. I think it takes a them to bring out the sense of us. Opie says, I've never had a stranger shout at me in public like that before. I'm glad he walked away after Max said that because I'm pretty sure Max was serious about there being a problem if he shouted at me again. Party Hearing says, congratulations OP. That's amazing. My only advice is to keep actively working on the relationships. There are no roadmaps for half siblings. Coming from a toxic situation where I have two half brothers from different mothers, it was hard. Especially because my mum worked so hard to make sure my life was so stable, while my brothers had a much more tumultuous time. I had no idea how much resentment my brothers had built up over the years because I got to go home to somewhere safe. We weren't rich, we had no big vacations. I just wasn't abused at my mum's place like my brothers were abused at their mother's place. We were all abused at my bio-father's place. We are working on our relationships now. It's a hard road. So I'm glad you're starting now and that your brothers are so supportive of you. Opie says, yeah, it will take work. 1 week can't fix everything, but it's a good start. I think another wonderful thing in this as well is that, these guys are young. I know there's two 18-year-olds in there, but I wasn't talking about my thoughts and feelings at that age. And I know many of my friends and stuff weren't as well. And I'm not saying this for everyone, of course, but for me personally to read that, I just find it so refreshing that these young people talking about their feelings in such an open way with each other in the end. I just think that's wonderful. But what do you guys make of this situation? I need to go and dry my eyes. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care.